Welcome back to Chicago Reacts. My name is Michael. I'm an actor here in the city of Chicago, and I am joined by the ever-brilliant, the always talented, the devilishly handsome.
Oh, wow, Zach. Also an actor here in the city of Chicago. I'm devilishly handsome. Have you seen this guy? Warhammer 40K. We are back.
Yes.
We are back. Templin Institute. We have loved those videos.
So much fun.
Yes, the way that they condense the videos and but very attainable and easy to understand for newbies as well. It's awesome. This is the Necron Dynasties. So this should be interesting. I kind of remember the Necrons when we were watching Bricky's video on all the different factions and races and stuff. So,
but it's really fun to get a deeper dive because that was definitely like a quick overview of everything.
Yes,
which was helpful to give us like a piece of the like sort of an overview, a broader brushstroke. But then to dive into some of these deeper lore elements, very fun.
Yeah.
Thank you to Mark vs. Gaming for the suggestion. We really appreciate that. If anyone else has suggestions, leave those in that comment section down below.
Also, feel free to check in the description. We have done it. We have started the Twitch channel. So it's Chicago Plays.
We've done
and give us a follow so that way you can be notified whenever we do stream. Right now, our schedules are a bit sporadic, but we are on there pretty often. Michael and I were actually on there today playing some War Thunder into The Witcher 3, actually. So feel free to check us out there. We ideally we'll get to some Warhammer gaming at some point. Total War, remember with the Warhammer and World of Warcraft stuff too. So tons of fun.
Yeah, we're loving it. So go check it out there.
Yeah,
and like and subscribe.
Yeah, baby.
And let's jump into it.
Necron Dynasty.
Here we go.
Dynasty. What do you think the password was, Mike?
Warhammer.
Oh.
But I didn't see how many characters.
On many worlds across the galaxy, curious structures have been found carved of black-hued stone, the forgotten remnants of some long-dead race. This is hardly unusual, and they are noted without much excitement among...
Just real quick. Imagine a Mass Effect Solarian. Telling you this.
I was picturing that. No way.
Just imagine.
On countless other ruins left by countless other races. Occasionally, expeditions will be sent to learn their secrets, and hidden entrances uncovered to vast complexes located far beneath a planet's surface. Sometimes, these parties return with exotic trinkets or half-believed tales. Sometimes, they do not return at all. Few across the galaxy recognize these sites for what they truly are, and the threat they represent. Fewer still might know how it came to be that one of the first races to set forth blindly into a galaxy of darkness would be damned for eternity, transformed into a tortured race of soulless constructs, known as the Necrons.
Oh, cool.
Neither the gods nor galaxy were kind
sort of like
to the
undead.
Necrontyr. Millions of years before humanity evolved to sentience, in an ancient formation of stars on the outer edge of the galaxy, they raised their civilization under the torturous light of a blighted sun. Endlessly scoured by piercing solar winds and terrible radiation, the lives of the Necrontyr were short and uncertain. Their bodies were consumed by agonizing cancers and constant illness. Their existence was defined by overwhelming loss and grief. Cities were built in honor of the dead and the living who wandered their streets, relegated to brief caretakers of vast sepulchres and ornate tombs. Driven by the desperate hope that they might free themselves from the cruel maladies of their sun, the Necrontyr set out to carve an interstellar empire. Bereft of psychic powers, the Necrontyr were unable to pierce the immaterium, and instead relied upon slow-moving torch ships, carrying enormous stasis crypts. Though arduously slow to realize their dream, the Necrontyr were able to colonize much of the galaxy. Tragically, however, they could not rid themselves of their physical frailty, For even on rich, unspoiled worlds, the curse of their homeworld left them withered and short-lived. It was a terrible irony, then, that of the few other civilizations present in the galaxy, they should encounter the beings known as the Old Ones. Ancient even to the Necrontyr, the Old Ones had long since conquered the burden of mortality and now were gifted with eternal life. Yet it was a gift they refused to share, and the entire Necrontyr race was left to fester in jealousy and resentment. The unity that had propelled them into space was shattered, and competing Necrontyr dynasties warred with one another in a conflict that threatened to destroy their entire race. Had these wars of succession been allowed to continue, the Necrontyr might have been yet another footnote in galactic history, a civilization that rose, burned brightly and briefly, only to be extinguished. But the Triarch, the ruling council of three that governed the Necrontyr race, realized that only an external enemy had the power to reunite the dynasties and revive the spirit of their civilization. The choice was obvious. Only the Old Ones presented a credible threat, and the jealousy and resentment of the Necrontyr had been kindled into a burning rage. Successionist dynasties were offered amnesty. The Necrontyr reunited under the rule of the Triarch, and armies and fleets were sent to fight a war they could not win.
The idea of
In
a common
contrast to the
enemy
Necrontyr,
bringing a people together, like that's such an that's always been kind of interesting to me. But yeah, the idea of like a division within a group that are then brought back together and unified through the lens of a common enemy. That
Well, it's interesting too that this outside force is trying to unite them, but yeah, interesting, very cool.
Here, the Old Ones were the masters of the Immaterium. Through the use of warp gates and the extra-dimensional webway, they constantly outmaneuvered the plodding forces of the Necrontyr. Despite their superior technology, they were little more than an irritation to the Old Ones, and faced with an invincible enemy, the dynasties fell back into civil war among themselves. Having only accelerated the complete collapse of their rule, the Triarch again searched for salvation. Competing accounts differ on how the Necrontyr first encountered the Catan. Some claim they were discovered in the heart of a dying star, while others say that the burning hatred the Necrontyr held for the Old Ones acted as a type of beacon. Regardless, the power of the Catan was incalculable. Beings of incredible raw energy, the Catan dwarfed entire worlds, their consciousness too vast to even comprehend. That the Necrontyr could even communicate with them was a miracle, and the oldest dynasties actively courted their favor. Through an eldritch type of living metal, the incorporeal forms of the Catan were gifted bodies to inhabit in the physical realm. Thus clad, their consciousness and power was focused, and they soon came to delight in the pleasures available within the material universe. One such Catan, acting as a forerunner to the coming of his brothers, appeared before the Triarch. It claimed it and its kind, like the Necrontyr, had fought a war against the Old Ones, a war they had lost, and now were hidden across the galaxy, eagerly awaiting allies who might help bring that ancient race to account.
Cool.
It promised the Necrontyr everything they had wanted: unity, power, and most importantly, the secret of immortality. With the pact between the Necrontyr and the Catan sealed, the Star Gods revealed the form that immortality would take. Enormous bio-furnaces were constructed and roared through the days and nights. What arcane procedures took place within are best forgotten. But while it was the people of the Necrontyr race who entered them, it was something else entirely that emerged. In place of diseased and frail bodies came shells of living metal, and the awful truth of the Pact made clear. Through their transformation, the Necrontyr race had perished, stripped not only of their flesh, but of their souls.
Oof.
Yet while the price had been steep, every promise made by the Catan was fulfilled. Clad in armor that only their most terrible injuries could destroy, the newly born Necron race and their Catan allies wrought a terrible vengeance upon the Old Ones. Even as their last strongholds were broken, and even as the webway was penetrated and invaded, the Triarch had realized the deception played upon their own people. Where they had once feasted on the energy of the stars, now the Catan feasted upon living souls. The star gods had gorged themselves on the Necrontyr and brought to the galaxy a war of such horror that even the victors would find no triumph. In an act of perfectly calculated betrayal, the Necrons waited until the Old Ones had been wiped out, and then turned on the Catan in their moment of victory. Weakened and arrogant as the result of their long struggle, the Catan were shattered by the unimaginable energies of the living universe, focused into weapons too mighty for even the star gods to endure. While the Catan were a part of a fundamental fabric of reality, and therefore impossible to destroy completely, their shattered forms were bound within thousands of smaller fragments, scattered across the galaxy, so they might never reform. The Catan had been shattered, but the time of the Necrons was over. The cost to their civilization had been immense, and powerful psychic entities, unleashed during the wars against the Old Ones, threatened to scour the galaxy. Younger races, created by the Old Ones to aid in their war, were also rising, with the wrath of the Eldari, in particular, impossible for Necrons to stand against. The Silent King, first among the Triarch, and the only member of that council who survived betraying the Catan, gave one final order. His people were commanded to sleep, to wait for a time in which even the great power of the Eldari had withered, and the Necrons might return to rule the galaxy. With this order fulfilled, the Silent King vanished, fleeing into the intergalactic void, seeking solace and penance for the terrible suffering he had inflicted upon his people. On countless worlds, the skeletal constructs of the Necrons lay dormant. They slumbered through the aeons as the galaxy healed from the wounds wrought during the war against the Old Ones, and new civilizations rose to fill the void left by their demise. But time wounded the Necrons in ways even their ancient enemies could not. Shifting tectonic plates crushed Necron strongholds on untold planets. Stars went supernova, consuming tomb worlds in their death throes. And everywhere, primitive races fought over the scraps of Necron territories. Even tomb worlds left untouched have felt the decay of time. Cascading failures in stasis crypts destroyed billions of dormant Necrons, while others have been affected by a slow madness that threatens to override their original programming. Even the last order of the Silent King has not been precisely followed. The great awakening of the Necron race has not occurred in unison, but in fitful starts across the millennia. Errors in circuits and protocols have enacted the revivification of tomb worlds far earlier than intended, with some said to have stirred in time to see the great crusade of the Emperor of Mankind, the cataclysm of the Horus Heresy, or the endless wars of the Age of the Imperium. While many have risen, most lay dormant still. The first skeletal machines encountered by the younger races were misidentified either as mindless constructs, another trivial Xenos race on par with the Hrud or Kroot, or most curiously, as chaos androids constructed by an extinct subspecies of abhumans. Of all the great powers in the galaxy, only the remnants of the Eldari understand the full nature of the Necron civilization. All Necrons, regardless of their rank or station, have had their flesh replaced with necrodermis. This living metal possesses the extraordinary ability to regenerate damage nearly instantaneously, flowing back together as if a liquid to repair even...
Like Terminator.
That's cool. That is cool.
Just a bunch of Terminator bots.
Yeah, man. I wonder if that's where like the inspiration for part of the Necrons, like, and their lore is from. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, that
That's
or
cool.
vice versa.
It's
but-
really cool too to just like see start of it. Like this is the start of like that. This is a literally like a pre. This race is really painting the picture of an era before
Right.
a lot of the other Warhammer stuff that we've seen. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like
It's some fun, like, real deep history and lore into these entities that are sort of this looming threat that not many people know about.
right.
Very cool.
Right.
Being, yeah.
Yeah, but
It's such a fun, fun, and by fun, I mean intense and dark and horrific tale, but also fun.
also
Like,
fun. Yeah.
I mean, that's what's fun about this world. So, oh, and they look so cool. I love how they're able to get really good images for all of these.
It's it's
They
like
really do a good job of creating like a visual story to go along with it.
they're
That's so
The
cool.
largest gashes or tears. Given enough time, even the most terribly damaged Necron constructs can be repaired, or its consciousness transferred to a new body. Only a select few Necron
consciousness without
constructs,
a
however,
soul though.
So they really are like immortal, but yeah, they don't have a soul.
Right.
possess a consciousness in the way the Imperium or the other races of the galaxy might understand it. The transformation of the Necrontyr race stripped the intellect, self-awareness, and personality from all but the most strong-willed. These individuals, often the leaders or elite of Necrontyr society, were given the very finest necrodermis bodies, but even they are pale shadows of their former selves. The professional soldiery were given comparatively crude bodies, while the common citizen received whatever remained. These tortured creatures are numb to all joy and experience, bound solely to the will of their masters, and requiring constant direction to fulfill their purpose. Even so, a tiny spark of their mortal selves remain, just enough to torment them with memories and echoes. During the time of the Necrontyr, their civilization embraced a rigid hierarchy. While split between various dynasties, all were ultimately subject to the will of the Triarchy, a council of 3 pharaons, the greatest and most powerful leaders of their race. The head of this council was known as the Silent King, for he never addressed his subjects directly, but rather through the pharaons who ruled alongside him. The short lifespan of the Necrontyr ensured that members from many dynasties were represented within the Triarch, or held the position of Silent King itself.
Oh, interesting.
Following their biotransference, the hierarchy of the Necrontyr became absolute with the Necrons. Completely subservient to the will of the Silent King, even the pharaons were forced to follow his directives through command protocols embedded in every Necron mind. So ashamed by his failures, however, the last Silent King severed these protocols upon his withdrawal from the galaxy, and ultimate authority had been split across the various dynasties that remained. Pharaons and other ranks of Necron overlords have awoken to find themselves free of the Silent King and able to pursue their own agendas. Combined with aberrations in their programming that leave some overlords struck by madness, the actions of the Necron race are eclectic almost to the point of randomness. The Necron lords of some dynasties display a splendid adherence to honorable conduct, sending forth emissaries and diplomats. On the battlefield, they adhere to the spectacle of honorable war, rigorously applying their ancient codes of battle. Other dynasties have embraced treachery and terror, utilizing psychological warfare, deception, and assassination. More still focus their attention inwards, pursuing the systematic extermination of any life forms who interfere with their affairs. While these acts are extraordinarily diverse in their extent and method, all are directed towards a single common goal: the restoration of the Necron dynasties to rule over the galaxy. Yet with the Triarch long destroyed, most tomb worlds still dormant, and others inflicted with madness, there can be no grand strategy. Each tomb lord pursues whatever course he deems most suited to circumstance. Some have sought to dominate nearby threats and sow terror on alien worlds. Others have stockpiled raw materials, or prioritized the recovery of cultural treasures or artifacts. A few have even begun the search for organic species whose bodies might be suitable vessels to reverse the curse of biotransference and bring about the return of the mortal Necrontyr. When committed to battle, the Necrons typically strike with little warning. A Necron Lord will have a great variety of forces at his command, but will typically rely on soldiers known simply as warriors or immortals, which made up the ancient armies of the Necrontyr. Lichguard, Deathmarks, and Praetorians are used more sparingly, while the largest Necron constructs are reserved for wars of annihilation and vast interstellar campaigns. Their highly advanced technology means that their armies typically need only march forward, and an overwhelming, inexorable advance has become synonymous with the Necrons. Despite this, they are capable of more nuanced tactics when necessary, and there exist a variety of Necron constructs capable of infiltration or rapid maneuver. But the Necrons' greatest advantage in combat remains their near-indestructible necrodermis bodies. In the rare instances in which their armies have been destroyed, or the tide of battle has turned against them, every Necron construct has simply disappeared from the battlefield, phase-shifting to some other place or reality, so that they might repair their wounds, only to re-emerge once more.
That's a bit unfair.
The method by which the Necrons achieve this remains unknown. They likely retain some access to the webway, forcing their way into the ancient labyrinth through the use of...
That's like an actual like
a visual effect.
yeah, that's so cool.
I don't know if that's grabbed from. I'm curious to see if they create some of this stuff themselves or if it's mostly grabbed from like fan art.
I'm sure it's
I would assume it's more fancy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's so cool to see how the fan base has just created so much around this universe,
and it's just pure out of like love for the art. That's it. Like you know, it's I honestly have never seen anything like it.
Yeah,
and
it's so cool. Yeah. And this the lore behind the Necrons is so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's so distinct from some of the other like races or factions. It's really, really cool. Though it reminds me of like a Necron orc crossover, because the orcs can like just will machines into working.
Yeah, no, that's
I feel like I feel like that would be the worst case scenario, is if the Necrons teamed up with the orcs.
It's if the Necrons teamed up with the orcs.
That would just be because it's like, the Necron.
Don't do that. Don't give them
their armor is actually failing, or the orcs just like, no, I believe it is working just fine, and they just are just I don't know.
Eldritch portals,
I think it'd be
known
sick.
as Dolmen Gates. Necron starships have also been occasionally sighted, but never in great numbers. Whether the Necron fleet did not survive
like
their long
pyramids.
slumber intact, or they have the means to conceal their movements,
That's cool.
likewise
it
remains
really
unknown.
ties into like ancient
To the Imperium
world.
of Man,
Yeah, sort of
and
like
the other
ancient
great
Egyptian.
powers of the galaxy,
This is kind
the
of the vibe I'm
Necrons
getting.
remain
When
a
they look
shrouded
like
presence,
mummies, you know.
Yeah.
terrible when
Even down
roused
to
to
the
battle, and
symbology
cryptic
too.
in their actions.
Cryptography.
Yeah.
Like it's really cool. Like the number of overlaps that are very clear between our culture and the Necrons and the
like where the inspiration comes from.
Yeah,
Very cool.
It's very like it's very clear in how it's presented when you're looking for it, and it's.
But then it's just like, but how do we take this to the most intense intergalactic?
Yeah. How do we take
war universe? Yeah.
how do we take like Einstein's theories on relativity, magnify it like 1,000,000 times and make it more evil,
Make it horrible.
make it horrible, make it necrotic.
Yeah.
Make it
but hardly a major presence. With the fall of Cadia and the spread of the Great Rift across the galaxy, there are precious few resources to devote to the search of the rumored tomb worlds or the mysteries of some long-dead race. But as the time of ending begins across the galaxy, it is becoming harder and harder to ignore that tomb worlds are beginning to awaken at an ever-increasing rate. Certain patterns are starting to emerge, evidence that the power of the ancient Necron Empire is beyond even what the Eldari remember. As the great hive tendrils of the Tyranids sweep across the galaxy, it has been noted that even they avoid specific worlds. On Mars, an entire region has been quarantined, ostensibly due to some ancient contamination, but in truth, because a fearful entity dwells beneath it. A so-called Dragon of Mars. And despite the rampant spread of the ruinous powers and other warp-spawned horrors, there are curious places in the galaxy where even the overwhelming howls of the warp have been silenced. Places where the silence is far worse than the screams. Some have even claimed that the stars themselves whisper of the Silent King, that its exile is over, and it walks among the dynasties once more. If the Great Awakening is finally at hand, then the remnants of the Eldari, the vast host of the Imperium, the Orc hordes and Tyranid hive mind, even the gods of chaos themselves, might finally learn that for all their fearsome power, this galaxy was never truly theirs. That they are merely trespassers, whose time is finally
Oh, I'm gonna guess over. Was what we were hearing there.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh.
I was concerned I might have missed you. Please allow me to express my fulsome appreciation of your investigation, as you call it. Thoroughly researched and well spoken.
The Silent King.
Delightful from beginning to end. A few errors here and there. A few omissions. I had hoped that I or my collection might warrant inclusion. But you make cuts for time. I entirely understand. I am something of a seeker into mystery myself, and I feel a sense of professional courtesy to inform you that the presence of your institute has not gone unnoticed here. You are watched by some of whom you are already aware, and by others of which you are not. It is so rare to find those who might appreciate my work, and would be such a shame to see you become an agent of disorder. Until then, feel free to visit any time. There is always a place for you here.
Investigates the nations, factions, and organizations of alternate worlds.
Oh, that was cool.
That was
I
actually
love
pretty
that
neat.
tie-in at the end. I was like, oh, we're having technical difficulties. Nope, this is it. This is what's what. The Necron Dynasty is awaking.
Wow, man. Yeah, that's some that's some real crazy stuff.
Yeah, that was really cool. Oh, man, every time we jump into the 40, I'm just like, there's just so much here. And it's so interesting, and it's so cool to see the fan base create all of this material around it. And thank you to the Templin Institute for breaking it down for us. Necrons,
That's some scary
I'm gonna
stuff.
put Necrons and Works right now as my two.
See, like, for me, Necrons are by far the most, like, there's not even, at least what we've been aware of, like, that's great. I mean, this is the one that gave me the most, like, sense of impending doom.
I know. It is, yeah, at the end when they're like, all of these other factions are pawns
Right.
in the world
Also-
of Necrons.
Also, I love the philosophy here of, like, what's scarier, an enemy that's actually fighting for something or an enemy that really is almost isn't fighting for anything.
Right.
Like, I think, I don't know, I love, my favorite part about Warhammer 40K is the like the philosophy that it makes you think about, the discussions that we have even in the brief intervals,
Right.
and even, you know, afterwards when we're reflecting on something that we've watched. It's
Yeah.
really, really cool. And I don't know. I think it gives you a whole new way to ask questions about humanity too, in my opinion. And it really makes you ask questions about morality and
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, I think morality is very skewed in this world, but I mean,
Sure.
it's just such a hard universe, you know? Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like everything is like talked about on such a massive scale. You know, you're talking about planets collapsing
Galaxies,
and
yeah.
billions of deaths. It's just like so cataclysmic. You know, it's so massive, it's hard to even like comprehend, you know? But I think that's what, like, it always takes it to that extreme. It is just like this intense, extreme world.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Guys, if you've been enjoying the Templin Institute stuff, be sure to like the video and comment below, because in order for us to like keep getting good suggestions from you guys, like that's just critical to us, and also ensuring that like we're interacting with you guys in a way that could kind of help guide us in a good way and keep us
Into this universe.
yeah, because it's awesome. It's still a lot for Michael and I to take on, but we love it. So,
Yeah. By the way, thank you, Mark versus Gaming, for the
Yes.
suggestion.
yes.
Yeah, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Go check us out on Twitch, Chicago Plays. It's really fun. We're having fun. We hope you will too. And with that, I think we'll see you next time on Chicago Reacts.
When we're awoken.